Hello everyone, this is Delster and welcome to another video of Dark Side of the Ring, and in this episode review, it focuses on Sandman's life and wrestling career in ECW. I saw Sandman when they rebooted ECW in WWE around 2005, maybe 2004. A lot of people call it a failure, but I liked it because I got to see CM Punk for the first time and I had a really big crush on him back then. Anyway, I remember seeing Sandman and he looked really thin and in good shape, but really scary. He had this intimidating look when he came out to the ring with a kendo stick and he would hit a beer can on his head. I actually thought he was a lot stronger because of that, but WWE didn't really pay much attention to the ECW wrestlers at the time. I have been looking forward to this episode since they first announced it. Just to give a trigger warning, since there is footage from ECW, a lot of the footage is very graphic and hard to watch, so if you're very sensitive to blood and violence, don't watch this episode. Sandman's real name is James Fullington, and his birthday is June 16, 1963. He was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and his family, friends, and kids would call him Hack instead of Sandman or James. Sandman was given the nickname Hack by his older brother at the age of 5. When he was a kid, Sandman would watch WWF on Saturdays and was influenced by wanting to be a wrestler himself. Even at the time, Sandman would get drunk and do coke, which would have more of a negative impact once he got older. One day, Sandman broke into a home, got caught, and was sent to jail. Once he went to jail, he erupted in chaos by punching the guards in the face. Sandman went to an asylum afterwards for 6 months. After getting out, he went to a club and worked as a Chippendale dancer. He worked in a variety of clubs until Sandman got fired for soliciting. A bunch of troopers came to Sandman's job and asked him who his friends were as they were alleged for crimes. Sandman didn't snitch out his friends, so he got arrested and was let go from his job. Days later, Sandman meets his first wife, Lori, who was known as Miss Peaches in wrestling, and she then got pregnant with Sandman's baby. They married before the baby was born, as they didn't want the baby to be born out of wedlock. In order to provide for his family, Sandman worked in construction and then checked out a wrestling school. 3 months later, Sandman started wrestling. One of Sandman's first gimmicks was a surfer dude who would carry a surfboard to the ring. Sandman's daughter, Kelly, said that her father's surfer outfit smelled really bad. Lori was able to join her husband, Sandman, in the wrestling promotion ECW, which at first was called Eastern Championship Wrestling. Todd Gordon, who was the founder of ECW, said that Sandman's surfer gimmick was the worst, but Sandman's fighting style was really good. When Paul Heyman came to ECW, he changed the name of ECW to Extreme Championship Wrestling. Paul was considered a great worker with great ideas. He had Sandman's surfboard broken as a wrestler hit Sandman's head with the surfboard. With Paul in ECW, Sandman didn't need to wrestle with his boots, as one day he forgot to bring them, and Paul told Sandman that he didn't give a you-know-what. Sandman then walks into the ring as he portrays himself. It was a different gimmick, as he would come out to the ring with a cigarette in his mouth and his shirt off while hitting his head with a beer can. When his music or entrance theme would play, he took about 30 seconds to a minute or more to come into the ring. He sometimes has audience members drink alcohol with him and sometimes asked how old they were. For example, in an old clip, you could see Sandman interacting with a guy, asking him how old he was, and the guy answers 23. Sandman was considered a hardcore icon, as he eventually won the ECW Heavyweight Champion title. The audience related to Sandman in Philadelphia. For 35 years, Sandman was able to get over with this character. One day, Sandman had 5 beer cans while he was going to the ring, but was still able to wrestle as he was drunk after drinking so many beers. His co-workers would trust him even while Sandman was drunk. In another wrestling event, Sandman ends up coming out with the Singapore cane, as Paul was the one who came up with the idea. Paul had given Sandman a tree branch with no twigs, other branches sticking out for Sandman to come to the ring with. In the 90s, wrestling was more violent, and because of that, it got more popular. He had a match in Singapore. It was a caning match against Tommy Dreamer, and it helped Sandman and Tommy Dreamer's careers skyrocket. As he got hit by Sandman's cane, Tommy took it painfully as the stick was a hard hitter. His son Tyler said that Sandman would come to Tyler's school with marks and scars from the beer cans. Sandman was also a family man, as he spent his time off with his kids. Tyler said in this episode that he wished that his father was around more often. Unfortunately for his family, Sandman's schedule increased more, and ECW was becoming more adult, as they had Miss Peaches' bottom exposed in one of the televised events. Sandman worked with Nancy Benoit, who was known as Woman back then. Nancy helped Sandman with ideas in order for Sandman to have a better performance. Paul supposedly wanted Macaulay Culkin to work with Sandman as his kid, but Sandman thought it would be best if his own son Tyler worked with him. As a kid, Tyler worked with ECW. Todd said that Paul Heyman hiring Macaulay Culkin was a lie. When his son started to work with ECW, Sandman had already been involved in the storyline with Raven. They had Raven take control of Tyler's mind as part of their storyline. At the time, Tyler was 5 years old and wore an outfit much similar to Raven. While he played a mind-controlled gimmick, Tyler worshipped Raven, and the audience were shocked and dead silent as they saw Tyler speak out against his father. Raven at the time was considered a huge heel in ECW. Sandman and his family tried to keep the storyline as real as they could by having Sandman and his family leave the wrestling events in separate cars. Raven thinks that Tyler was a good actor in playing his character. Lori, Tyler's mom, eventually had enough of her son working. They stopped Tyler from working, and Sandman had another idea in mind. He wanted to have a cross to present in the ring, so he built one with barbed wire hanging around it, and some of it being put on his head. Raven and other people had Sandman tied to the cross, and once they came out, the audience was not happy about the display. Sandman was not a religious man, but some of his co-workers were not okay with the cross idea. Kurt Angle, who was there, supposedly said in an audio clip that he was upset about the idea since he is a Christian guy. The producers of ECW had Raven come out to the ring and apologize for this display. Unfortunately, Sandman and some ECW wrestlers were negatively impacted by this for a while or so. Afterwards, Sandman got a new hip, broke his neck, and broke both his knees as his body was tiring out after years of wrestling. Sandman had his meniscus shaved at one point, which is in the knee for those that don't know what a meniscus is. When Sandman had a concussion, he had some amnesia as he had forgotten where he was. His wife Lori didn't want Sandman to wrestle anymore as he pushed himself too hard. In order to get rid of the pain, Sandman started taking more pills and took cocaine as well. He has done a lot of alcohol, drugs, and pills since then. His kids eventually found his bags of pills, and as the kids got older, they realized that their father was a drug addict. Behind the ring, doctors in the wrestling scene would prescribe wrestlers with unlimited prescriptions such as 300 somas and 300 oxycontin. It was basically free candy but prescription drugs instead. RVD had mushrooms in his locker room one day, and Sandman steals them and takes them all. In another situation, he saw Raven shoot up a narcotic, and Sandman decides to take an 80 and was not feeling so good when he got into the SUV with Raven and Bill. Sandman had overdosed as his lips were turning blue, and he was unable to breathe. He went to a hospital and soon checked out at 4 a.m. as he soon went to a wrestling show the next day. After the hospital, he shot up OxyContin. Lori thinks that Sandman should have been dead a long time ago as his drug and alcohol habits were worsening. She one day saw the hospital bill of Sandman's visit because of his shooting and flatlining there. As ECW was starting to fail, ECW wrestlers soon went to either WCW or WWE, as these promotions were getting bigger. In order to become more buff, Sandman took steroids, and as he went to WCW, he was huge and jacked. However, he became physically abusive towards his wife Lori. One day, in Sandman's house, he poured a beer drink on his wife because he was mad at her. Dealing with so much abuse by Sandman, Lori had enough and dumped all of his shipments of drugs that were worth $10,000 into the front lawn. The kids were not happy about Sandman's actions, so Lori divorced Sandman. In 2001, ECW closed as Vince McMahon bought it and renewed it a few months later. ECW fans were not happy about how ECW was being used, as Sandman barely had any screen time. One day, Sandman went to a bar and got drunk, which led to a fight with the owner. He got arrested in New York, but he destroyed everything at the bar, which caused the SWAT team to come in. His kids eventually tried to bail Sandman out as they took out $2,000 per hour because the card that they had a limit. Once Sandman was out of jail, he looked disappointed while talking about what his kids had to go through in this episode. Sandman calls himself an idiot after years of drug and alcohol abuse. Sandman said that his legacy is about being the first person to do everything to the extreme. As the episode ends, Sandman said that he is screwed up in the head. Interviewers for this episode are the Sandman, Rob Van Dam, Sabu, Lori Strzelecki, also known as Miss Peaches, Sandman's ex-wife, Kelly Fullington, Sandman's daughter, Todd Gordon, ECW founder, Bill Fonzie Alfonso, wrestling referee and manager, Raven, and Tyler Fullington, Sandman's son. Sandman put a lot of himself for ECW as he hurt his body really badly while making some risky moves. It was an interesting episode as I got to learn new things about him, such as him being a surfer guy and coming to the ring with a cross. I give this episode an 8 out of 10 as I wish that they had Paul Heyman talk about Sandman and what his thoughts were on Sandman's gimmick. Paul really had some good ideas for Sandman, and knowing Paul, he probably had some interesting stories. While Sandman is an interesting character, I felt so bad for his wife and his kids as they had to put up with his drug problems and everything else. One thing that really surprised me was how his kids found Sandman's bag of pills. I hope things between Sandman and his family get better as they most likely went through a lot. Other than that, it was an interesting episode with some extreme footage from the past. Some facts that they did not cover in this episode were that Sandman held the ECW World Heavyweight Championship title 5 times. Sandman was in TNA and Extreme Pro Wrestling. In WWE 2K24, the video game, Sandman is in it as a downloadable content. Sandman actually has 3 kids with Lori, but one of them was not in the Dark Side of the Ring episode. He has another son with another woman, but I'm not sure if he is still with the mother of his 4th kid. His son Tyler was a wrestler in 2008, as he was known as Twisted Sand. When he had a fight with the owner of the bar in 2008, Sandman got a restraining order against the owner. Sandman has a banner in the former ECW Alhambra Arena in Philadelphia, as he was inducted into the Hardcore Hall of Fame back in 2007. In 2007, Sandman almost became Raw General Manager as he was second to last in a battle royale for the role, but lost to William Regal. That's pretty much it, but thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Comment, like, or subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you next time. Take care of yourself and everyone around you, and I'll do the same too. Bye guys.